Hi, I'm Lorraine. My parents convinced me to help my sister with a $42,000 house deposit. Said it was for the kids, for family. I wired the money. 2 weeks later, she was in Scottsdale handing off envelopes to a known financial fraud. Now she's disappeared, and the FBI is involved. How did we get here? And why does no one in my family think she did anything wrong? What time are you hearing this? And where are you watching from? Have you ever been betrayed by your own family? Drop a comment and let's talk. The smell of rosemary chicken clung to the warm kitchen air like it had something to hide. I sat across from my sister, Celeste, watching her scroll her phone with the kind of ease that only came from decades of being praised for doing nothing. Her nails were perfect. Her hair shimmered under the kitchen lights. Her smile flickered up just enough to remind everyone she was the sun, and we were lucky to orbit. Mom refilled her wine glass without asking. Dad nodded along to a story Celeste was barely telling. When I spoke, nobody seemed to notice. Dinner at my parents' house always had a script. I was the doing well, the footnote, the responsible one. Celeste was the performance, the headline. That night it was no different. Until it was. We have some exciting news, Mom said, placing her hand over Celeste's. Celeste and Daniel found a house. Perfect for the kids, Celeste added, finally lifting her eyes to meet mine. There was a flicker, something practiced. But Mom dragged out the word like it deserved applause. They're just short a little on the deposit, only $42,000. I didn't respond. I let the silence stretch. We know you're so careful with money, honey, she continued. And you've done so well for yourself. It's just, Celeste is doing everything she can. But with Daniel's salary and the market? Celeste leaned in, her voice suddenly soft. It's not a gift. Think of it as helping family. I would do it for you. That was the lie that tasted the worst. I've never asked her for anything, not once. But she said it like it was truth. And Mom nodded like she'd heard it before. Dad cleared his throat. It's just a temporary thing. A bridge. We do it ourselves, but with retirement. The words fell around me like feathers coated in lead. I looked at Celeste again. She didn't flinch. Sure, I said. We'll do it properly then. Her smile faltered. Properly? We'll meet at the bank. I'll transfer it from my business account. I'll need you to sign a receipt of transfer. Nothing legal, just a paper trail. Mom's smile cracked. Oh, Lorraine, that's not necessary. It is to me. Celeste's lips parted like she wanted to protest, but she shut them just as fast. I stood, grabbed my bag, and looked at her one last time. Bring your ID, I said. She blinked. What for? For the account verification. I didn't wait for the goodbye. I walked out with my heartbeat steady, the cold air biting against my skin. 16 years ago, Celeste cried in the bathroom on Christmas morning. She claimed she had lost the baby no one knew about. It was the same day I got promoted. She cried louder than I spoke. I got in my car and started the engine. I wasn't walking away from dinner. I was walking into the first move. 16 years ago, she used my name to open a credit card. I was 29, just promoted, and applying for a mortgage. I found out the hard way. Denied for a home I'd saved 10 years for. I remember the banker's face. Polite confusion. You already have a $4,200 balance on an active line, Celeste cried when confronted. It was an emergency, she had whispered. You weren't using your credit, right? My parents stood behind her. My mother's arms folded, my father rubbing his temples. I was told not to overreact. She's your sister. That was the first time I learned forgiveness in my family was a one-way street. This morning, I applied for a small business line of credit, just a buffer for a client expansion. The rejection came instantly. I didn't panic. Not at first. I requested a report, sat at my kitchen table and combed through every page like I was reading someone else's life. There it was, a $12,000 personal loan, opened 2 years ago, defaulted after 6 months. Address mismatch, email untraceable. But the social security number? Mine. The birth date? Mine. I felt it all over again. That slow rotting blend of disbelief and humiliation. I called the bank listed on the report, asked for a cosigner document. They emailed it to me an hour later. And there, in digital ink, was my father's signature. I stared at it for longer than I should have, willing it to be a mistake. But it wasn't. The stroke of his G curved the same way it always had. I hadn't even known he'd co-signed anything in years. When I drove to their house, the lights were already on. My father was outside watering the hedges like it was any other Tuesday. He looked up and smiled, so familiar, so ordinary. "I need to talk," I said. He blinked. "Everything okay?" "No." Inside, I placed the document on the dining table. His eyes scanned the screen. "Celeste needed help," he said finally. "She told me it was just a formality, that you'd never notice." "I noticed," I said. He didn't apologize. He didn't deny it. "It was just one last time," he muttered. "She promised." I didn't answer. I left the screen lit and walked out. As the door closed behind me, I heard him sigh. Soft, almost like shame. But not quite. Back home, I called Inez. "It's not just identity theft," I said. "It's institutional. They're all in on it." There was a pause. Then her voice steady. "Then we treat it like a case, and you're the plaintiff." I pulled out a notebook, started a list. This wasn't about one signature. This was about legacy, about rot running so deep people learned to call it love. The message came at 11:46 p.m. Celeste. "Connor's in the ER. They won't take my insurance. I need $3,000 wired now." I stared at the glowing screen, reading the text 3 times, each slower than the last. The way she phrased it felt curated, casual panic. No punctuation, just enough urgency to rattle someone. Someone like me. I wanted to believe it, I really did. But my gut? It twisted in a way that was too familiar. I forwarded the message to Inez and typed, "Can you verify ER intakes at Boulder General tonight?" She didn't even ask why. I tried calling Celeste. No answer. The ringing reminded me of Thanksgiving 2 years ago, when Celeste suddenly collapsed at the table just as Dad was about to ask me about my new business. "Low blood sugar," she said later, giggling between bites of pie, already back to her radiant self by dessert. The EMTs never came. She never left her seat. It was never about crisis. It was about controlling the moment. Inez messaged back. "No Connor Whitford admitted in the last 48 hours." The silence in my apartment was thick, unmovable. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder I had named 3 months earlier and hadn't touched since. Receipts. I started a new tab. Date, lie, evidence, amount. 10 minutes later, I got another message, this time anonymous. Subject line. "She's not where she said she was." No text, just an image. Celeste. Hair pulled back, laughing. A cocktail in her hand. Spa robe wrapped tight. Background. Luminous Spa and Wellness. Logo gleaming above the infinity pool. Timestamp. Same night, same hour she texted me about Connor's emergency. I leaned in, zoomed. No mistaking it. I could practically hear her fake laugh through the photo. I called Inez. "She was at Luminous," I said. "Not Boulder General." "You still want to believe this is a mistake?" she asked. "I used to," I said. "Now I just want a timeline." I opened a spreadsheet, titled it, Documented Deceits. Spa lie went first. There was something strangely liberating about turning pain into data. When you stop trying to make sense of someone's motives, you can finally track their patterns. It's cleaner, colder, smarter. I installed banking alerts linked to every joint family account I could trace. I kept them silent, push only, no sound. The next morning, Celeste posted a photo of her and Connor on Instagram. Caption, "Family first, always." 13,000 likes, a sea of red hearts. Top comment from Mom. "My girls, so proud." I didn't flinch. I wasn't just losing faith, I was building a case. I arrived late on purpose. Not enough to be rude, just enough to be forgettable. The garden was lit with string lights and polite tension. People I hadn't seen in years smiled like we still knew each other. The caterers wore crisp uniforms. The drinks were chilled. The judgment was ambient, like humidity. Celeste waved from across the lawn, champagne in hand. She was wearing white again, because of course she was. My mother stood at the center of the crowd, basking in the glow of her 65th birthday. I nodded politely, keeping my coat on longer than necessary. There was an energy I couldn't place. Eyes lingered. Conversations dipped when I approached. I told myself I was imagining it. I wasn't. During the toast, Marlene raised her glass and turned toward Celeste. To my firstborn who sacrificed more than anyone will ever know, who's carried burdens quietly with grace. Not everyone understands what love looks like. Some confuse control with care. But tonight, we celebrate truth and loyalty. She never said my name. She didn't have to. Celeste glanced at me with a smile so rehearsed it felt like déjà vu. I froze. My throat went dry. Every wine glass in the circle seemed to tilt in my direction. Marlene continued, "We don't need poison in this family. We need light." There was silence. Real, total silence. Even the wind paused. I placed my glass on the nearest table and walked out. No one followed. At home, I kicked off my heels and opened my laptop. My inbox was already on fire. A forwarded email from Marlene, sent to the entire family. Subject, clarification. She accused me of being unstable. Said I'd fabricated claims about Celeste due to a long-standing jealousy. Claimed I had sought attention by twisting stories. Attached cropped screenshots of old texts out of context and brutal. A cousin replied with one word, "Wow." Another, "Thanks for clarifying." I stared at the screen, then opened the folder titled Evidence. I began dragging in files, receipts, messages, screenshots. My phone buzzed. Celeste had posted a new photo. She and Marlene smiling, arms entwined. The caption read, "Truth always finds the light." I opened a new cloud folder, named it Family vs. Fiction. Inez picked up on the first ring. "If they want a war of narratives," I said, "I'll bring facts." "Start with the spa receipts," she said. I opened the door to Daniel soaked in rain and regret. He didn't speak right away, just stood there gripping a manila folder like it might disintegrate if he loosened his hold. "I didn't know where else to go," he said. I let him in. The kitchen lights hummed softly. Thunder rolled behind him like a closing threat. He placed the folder on the table and pushed it toward me. "It's gone," he whispered. "The entire college fund, $28,000. I didn't flinch. I sat down and opened the folder. The account statement showed a withdrawal made 3 weeks after the house deposit transfer. Celeste had moved it to a different account labeled Home Development Wellness Project. "She said it was an investment for the kids' future," Daniel added. "Some kind of generational branding campaign. I thought it sounded like a joke, but..." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. "She didn't just lie to me," I said. "She stole from her own children." Daniel rubbed his face. "I thought she was managing, behind but managing." "Behind?" I said. "She's been robbing you in slow motion." He exhaled and reached into his coat pocket. "There's more." I read the document. A property transfer agreement, notarized, legal. His name signed clearly, with Celeste's just beneath. She said it was to simplify the mortgage, consolidate things. "And you didn't question it?" "I did," he admitted. "But she said, 'You don't trust your wife?'" And I didn't want to be that guy. I leaned back, letting the ceiling lights blur into white streaks above me. She played both of us, you for loyalty, me for silence. He looked up. "What do I do?" "You lawyer up," I said, "and stop being the guy she counts on to clean up the mess." Daniel nodded slowly, as if just now remembering how to move on his own. "She's going to drag me down with her," he muttered, "and I think she knows it." "Then it's time you act like someone who finally sees the trap." I picked up my phone and texted Inez. "Start with the house." The envelope was cream-colored, unmarked, and thick. It waited on my doorstep like a quiet dare. I opened it with scissors, not curiosity. Inside, a notice of breach, lease agreement, past due, my name on the signature line. The address wasn't mine. I called the leasing office pretending to be my sister's assistant. "We're just updating billing records," I said sweetly. The clerk on the phone didn't blink. "Yes, Lorraine Whitaker is listed as co-signer, Celeste Whitford as tenant. Lease initiated last year. We've been trying to reach you about non-payment." The pen slipped from my fingers. It bounced once, then disappeared beneath the table. I didn't go after it. I just sat still. My skin was hot, my chest cold. She hadn't stopped. Not after the money. Not after the lies. I called Inez. She answered before the first ring finished. "She used my name on a lease," I said. "I'm legally liable, again." "I'm coming over," she replied. "We need to get ahead of this." Daniel arrived 10 minutes after she did. He looked as wrecked as I felt. We laid out documents across the table. The deposit, the college fund, the lease. Patterns emerged like bruises, scattered, overlapping, undeniable. I gave Inez power of attorney. She didn't blink. If she wanted to gamble with my life, I said, she'll lose hers on the record. That night, Inez sent me a secure file, security footage. Celeste in Scottsdale, smiling, envelope in hand, across from her, Amanda Cross, white blazer, gold necklace, known associate of 3 financial crime cases. Timestamp, 2 days after my $42,000 vanished. I paused the video. Celeste's hands moved like they always did when she lied, calculated, gentle, like playing a piano only she could hear. This wasn't just familial abuse, I said. This is federal. I copied the footage 3 times, labeled one for the FBI, one for myself, one for backup. Daniel sat across the room. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. This is no longer emotional, I said. It's criminal. The air was thick with fluorescent stillness. I stared at the ceiling and realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I opened my email draft and typed, "You used my name, my money, and my silence. One of those things ends now." Then I saved it. I printed the lease. I froze the footage on the frame where Amanda handed her the second envelope. I labeled each page, and I slept like I hadn't in years. The envelope was thick, sealed with tape, and delivered to my office with no return address. Inside, screenshots, payment receipts, DMs, workshop rosters, all bearing Celeste's name in the header, and lies stitched into every line. It wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation. I used to think she was impulsive, dangerous in a chaotic, flailing sort of way. But this, it was structure, predatory, intentional. A spreadsheet listed over 40 names, mostly women, most of them under 30. Some were tagged with notes like paid in full, others marked ghosted after refund request. One file was a script. Word for word, it laid out how to convince clients they weren't failing. It was their mindset. "You're not broke," she wrote. "You're blocking your own abundance." I printed the line and circled it in red. Inez came over that night. We sat on opposite sides of my dining table, scrolling through Celeste's curated destruction. Luxury trips that never happened. Photoshopped PayPal balances, AI-generated testimonials. It was dizzying. Daniel joined via Zoom. His voice cracked. She used the kids in promo videos, said they were the reason she broke free from scarcity. She filmed them in their pajamas. I wanted to vomit. I named the new folder Operation House of Cards. Then I found Mia Roberts, 22, graphic design student. She'd paid Celeste $600 for a 3-week manifestation mentorship. She'd joined 2 Zooms, received 1 generic worksheet, and never got a refund. The file ended with a screenshot of a Notes app draft. A message unsent. "I believed you. I needed someone to believe in me back." I stared at the screen for what felt like a full hour. The silence wrapped around me like cotton soaked in grief. It wasn't just my life Celeste had fed on. It wasn't just my name. This wasn't a feud. It was a death toll. I didn't call her. I didn't scream. I copied the folder to a drive labeled Federal. I opened a new email, attached everything. The contact Daniel had given me at the bureau. Subject, urgent, fraud victim documentation. Before I hit send, I wrote to Celeste. "One girl died believing in your lies. You have 3 days to tell the truth before I do." I didn't send it. I deleted it. And I sent the folder instead. "You never thought I'd use my voice. That's exactly why it'll echo." I placed the binder on the coffee table like a verdict. It was thick, tabbed, and silent. The living room hadn't changed. Same floral drapes, same photos of Celeste smiling with her arms around people who thought they knew her. My mother sat in her favorite armchair, clutching her tea with both hands. My father hovered behind her, as always. "I want you to look through these," I said. My voice didn't shake. Marlene opened the binder. Gerald didn't move. I didn't interrupt as she flipped the pages. Banking records, fake LLC registrations, screenshots of her text messages to victims, receipts, timestamps, a testimonial from a woman Celeste had promised to mentor, who lost her rent money instead. Marlene paused halfway through, closed the binder gently, and looked at me. Her voice was calm. "She's still your sister." I waited, for regret, for shame, for something. Gerald stared at the carpet. "You're not confused," I said. "You're choosing her lies over my truth." "She's been under stress. You both have. my mother offered. But this doesn't help anything. No apology, no denial, just deflection. I left the binder behind. When I got home, there was an email waiting for me. From a crisis PR firm. Subject: Media Protection Strategy, Whitaker Family. I clicked it open. My mother had hired them, a full damage control plan, just in case certain allegations went public. Their draft statement painted me as an emotionally unstable relative with a documented grudge. My name was in bold. The irony hit harder than the betrayal. I didn't call, I didn't reply. I just forwarded the whole email chain to the FBI with a single line: "You have my full cooperation." Then I went to the bookshelf, pulled down my old photo album, me and Celeste at 5 and 7, Easter. We wore matching dresses. I kept one photo, left the rest in a paper bag and took them to the donation bin behind the church. Back home, I deleted the family group chat. Blocked numbers I should have blocked a decade ago. This wasn't a rupture. It was a release. My phone lit up. Incoming call, Celeste. I didn't pick up. I watched her name disappear off the screen, then I blocked it. The email came just after 3. Not dramatic, just official. The subject line read, "Case confirmed for federal indictment." I read it once, then again. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I sat on the edge of my bed, the rain outside tapping like quiet applause on the window. The apartment was still. My coffee had gone cold on the counter. I watched the condensation bead along the rim of the mug and run down like little escapes. I didn't reply to the bureau. I didn't need to. They had everything. Later that week, Inez told me Daniel had moved out, took the kids. No announcement, no final words, just packed, loaded, and left. I didn't blame him. He owed no one a performance. Not anymore. Celeste's Instagram vanished. No more curated sunlit selfies. No more hashtags about healing. Just gone, like a wiped screen. But not forgotten. Marlene sent me one last message. No apology, just, "I hope you're proud of yourself." I blocked her before I could type a single word. She wanted guilt. What I felt was relief. I drove past the house I grew up in. Once, slowly. The porch light was on. The same wind chimes hung from the same nail, making the same sound they had since 1998. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. But I did leave something. A small envelope. One photo of me and Celeste from when we were girls, standing in the yard, holding hands with dirt on our knees and ice pops melting down our arms, and a note. We were sisters once. That was real. But what you became wasn't my fault. I walked back to the car and never looked back. 2 weeks later, I taught a financial literacy workshop at the community center. Free. Just 6 women in folding chairs. One of them, barely 20, asked me, "Have you ever made a mistake that cost you everything?" I smiled. No, but I let people treat me like I had. The class ended. Inez waved through the glass from the hallway. My phone buzzed. DOJ notification. Trial date confirmed. Subject, Celeste Whitaker. I didn't flinch. I silenced the alert and went back to erasing a whiteboard covered in numbers. That night I sat on my bed, staring at my phone again. The last voicemail from her still waited. I let it sit there for 2 days. Then, without listening, I deleted it. I didn't want an apology. I wanted a future that didn't include her. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the most powerful thing you can do. I spent years thinking silence was strength, that keeping the peace meant protecting the people I loved. But peace without truth is just quiet damage. You don't owe anyone your loyalty if all they do is use it against you. If you've ever been the one in the family who's expected to carry the weight, to forgive first, to give more, then maybe this story echoes something in you. And if it does, I hope it reminds you that boundaries aren't betrayal, they're survival. What would you have done? Have you ever had to draw a line that cost you everything, but gave you back yourself? If this story spoke to your heart, drop a 1 in the comments, or tell me what state or country you're watching from. If you didn't connect with it, I'd still love to know why, and where you're watching. Let's talk. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories that dig deep into the things we carry, and what it takes to finally put them down.